everyone, this week it's all about demonstrations and do you use them in your university lectures? Welcome along to the channel. If you're a returning subscriber, it's lovely to have you back. My name is Caroline. I'm a UK-based university physics lecturer. And over the last few days, I've been looking at one of my lecture courses that I teach in the autumn and thinking about if I can include demonstrations. And it's made me really curious actually to see, as an academic community, do you like or can you use demonstrations in your lectures? I have one of the first year lecture courses on my kind of teaching portfolio, and it's kind of the course that you take to take you from your level of education that you've come in with, maybe a BTEC or an A level, and to bring you through to the university kind of intro standard for physics. And that means that the first couple of weeks of the course, they're not exactly the most, revolutionary, exciting material. You know, we're covering things that maybe some of the class would have seen before, but some of the class won't have seen. And the idea is to get everybody kind of level so they've all seen the same content. And, you know, typically we might be covering things like vectors cross products. We'll be looking at equations of motion, resolving vectors into their component form, looking at things, how they fly through the air in 2 dimensions and the pathways they take. And I was thinking, how can I make this more exciting so that the students want to come to those early lectures? Because in this particular lecture course, once we get to about the 3rd week or the 4th week in, we're then doing some really fun concepts and fun ideas. And I personally think the lecture material then becomes more kind of lively and easier to interact with the class. So I was wondering, okay, how do I get audience engagement and get the students excited about my lectures right in those first couple of weeks? And I have decided this year for the first time to try to use demonstrations more throughout the lecture course. So I've taught this particular class now for 5-6 years. And last year I introduced a few, I guess, quite light demonstrations, you know, things with yo-yos, nothing particularly kind of fancy or flashy. And I've decided this time to try to be more adventurous. So I have ready to go into the university with me to have a play with a brand new Hot Wheels car set. I'm not sure if any of you have purchased this for yourself, maybe, or probably for like a friend or a child. But essentially it's as a toy, and it's designed to show cars going loop the loop and flying through the air and landing into buckets. And I thought it would be the perfect way to demonstrate some of the mathematical equations and concepts I'm teaching in those first few weeks of class. And it turns out there's a bit of a process of being able to do demonstrations in your lecture theatre. So last year I just took my yo-yo in for the demonstration. And it turns out I should have done some paperwork and there are risk assessment forms to go through. So this summer I'm spending a bit of a time, first of all, practicing the demonstrations that I want to do. And so, as I said, one of the demonstrations will be using this kind of Hot Wheel car set. Other car sets are available, but it should be good fun and it should allow me to show students some of the kind of concepts of motion that we're discussing. I'm also hoping to be able to maybe spin myself round and do a kind of a thing with a bike wheel so I can share about the conservation of angular momentum. I've got a couple of ideas for later on as well in the lecture series, and I'm looking at collisions and things colliding to kind of try to show the difference between how things might go off in 2 dimensions versus 1 dimension. But anyway, basically, when I spoke to the team at my university, the plan is that I, first of all, need to go into the lecture theatre and try out these demonstrations. So whilst the students are away, the undergraduate students are on their vacation, and obviously the incoming year of students are awaiting their results. Whilst that's happening, the lecture theatres are a little bit freer. So I will be going in over the next couple of weeks and trying out these demonstrations. With nobody watching, I can just see what they look like. I might record them. We have filming technology in the lecture theatre, so I might film myself doing the demonstrations to see if I think they're making sense or adding value to the content of the material. And then if I like them, I will then complete the risk assessment paperwork and hand in to our laboratory superintendent who kind of oversees all the health and safety within my department. I suspect I maybe have to show them actually the demonstrations in action to make sure that we're all happy with what I'm doing, because it's one thing doing it in a lecture theatre while I'm the only person in the room. It'll be something different if I've got 80 to 100 students that they're watching me. I've got to make sure that nothing's going to go off into the audience. I used to do a lot of children's juggling and party entertaining, and I did have an incident where one of my pieces of equipment, a Diablo, did fly into the audience, which wasn't great. So I need to make sure that doesn't happen in my physics lecture classes. And I also importantly need to think about how I'm going to use these demonstrations. Am I going to open the lecture class with it and kind of use it to capture the students' attention right at the start of class? Am I going to use it halfway through to kind of keep the energy in the lecture? So one thing I have done is my lectures last year, I had 2-hour lectures allocated to me by timetabling, and I just feel they're a little bit too long for students to be able to retain focus. We broke them up, and I did fun things, I tried to do fun things during the lecture theatres, quizzes halfway through. We watched YouTube clips relevant to the material that we're studying. We had kind of mini debates and kind of challenge questions. But 2 hours is still a really, really long time. And so this year I've requested all of my lectures to be only 1 hour. And actually that really means 50 minutes, because by the time you come into the room, you always get 5 minutes at either end of the hour to people get settled in and to leave. So I need to decide, am I using these demonstrations at the start, in the middle? Am I going to use them at the end to get students thinking about something before they come back into the room the next day for the next lecture, and I can explain the principle that they observed the day before? I don't know where the best place in my lecture is to use the demonstrations, so it'll be fun to try out. I also need to make sure that my timing is still going to work. So obviously I've been used to teaching this lecture class without demonstrations. I do use YouTube videos quite a lot to show principles or ideas, and I'm hoping to be able to replace some of those video clips with myself now doing a live demonstration. But I can't have anything that takes too long to set up, or is too awkward, or too difficult, because it's likely that somebody will have the lecture theatre before me. So I think I did a previous video about this. When you go to give your lecture class as the academic, you typically turn up and you have about 5 minutes to get the IT ready, to get the recording software ready, to get anything out that you want to use in that lecture, and then you have to start teaching. And it's not long. These days we have a lot of IT to set up. So I have my main screens to set up. I have the ones that are recording me for students who want to watch the lecture at a later time. In the past as well, we've had live kind of connections so people can watch it remotely, although I don't think I have to do that this year, which will be good. And then once I've all got that set up, I have to make sure that I've got my own materials ready to go, the things I'm teaching in that particular lecture. And so adding a demonstration on top of all that prep work is going to be something else I need to see whether it works within that lecture time frame. I really hope it will. I'm quite looking forward to trying it. As an academic who's taught this particular course for 5 or 6 years, it'll be nice to do something a bit different and to see how it works. Does it go down with the students well? Do they like it? Do they not like it? But I'm curious, does your academic subject allow you to use demonstrations? Do you use them in class? Do you find that they're a good thing to do in a lecture theatre situation? Or do you tend to stay away from doing anything kind of live and maybe rely on recorded clips instead? Maybe your subject doesn't really require demonstrations at all. And in that case, I'm kind of interested to know, what do you do to help with your lectures to keep them moving and to keep the pace engaging and to keep the audience kind of listening to what you're saying? Let me know in the comment section. I really, really do love reading your comments. If you're new around here, do hit subscribe. I'm sure at some point in the autumn semester, I will be making a video to say, how are these demonstrations turning out? I'll probably try to include a few clips of me actually doing them as well. So if you want to see the result of whether these demonstrations actually work in principle, do hit subscribe. I am here every Monday with another academic video. So do join our little academic space here on YouTube. Have a brilliant week. Stay safe, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.